Hey guys, tonight we're going to time travel straight into the Ice Age. No warm boots, no granola bars, just your bare feet, your ancient brain, and the growl of your stomach echoing through an empty valley. You're a Neanderthal hunter, and it's one of those really bad days. The kind where the weather's mean, your tribe's scattered, and whatever was left of last week's mammoth jerky is long gone. No cute cave paintings today. This is the part of prehistory where you survive on stubbornness and bad decisions. Honestly, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and what time it is for you down in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up with a start, your cheek pressed into cold stone, your animal skin blanket half covered in snow that's drifted into the mouth of the cave. Last night's fire? Long gone. All that's left is the faint smell of ash and a pile of brittle black logs that gave up their warmth hours ago. You sit up, slowly, because the muscles in your back protest with a soreness that's become all too familiar. Your stomach growls, loudly. Not the polite kind of hunger you get between lunch and dinner, but the gnawing, acidic burn that makes your hands shake. You haven't eaten anything substantial in 2 days, and even that was barely half a squirrel and a dried-out mushroom you weren't entirely sure wouldn't kill you. Spoiler, it didn't, but it did make you see flashing lights behind your eyelids for most of the afternoon. You shuffle toward the cave entrance, pulling your fur wrap tighter. The wind slices across the opening like it's got something to prove, stinging your cheeks and making your eyes water. The sky is a uniform slab of grey, not the dramatic, picturesque kind with clouds that look like dragons, but the dull, endless kind that says, nope, not today. You scan the horizon. No movement. No smoke. No sign of the others. The rest of your hunting party wandered off 2 nights ago chasing reindeer tracks into the hills. You stayed behind with a twisted ankle, thinking they'd be back by now. They're not. The reality is hitting you like a club to the chest. You're alone. You check your supplies. Your flint knife is still sharp, blessedly, and you've got a single strip of leather you'd been planning to use to rewrap your foot. But in a moment of quiet despair, you eye it like a snack. People have eaten worse. In fact, you have. Remember that time you boiled your own sandal? Yeah. That was a low point. This might be lower. Outside the cave, the snow crunches differently under your feet, thinner, wetter, with the kind of icy crust that promises more melting than freezing. Not ideal. The animals know it, too. You see no tracks, no scat, no hopeful bird calls. Even the scavengers have cleared out. They're smart. They don't stick around when the pantry's empty. You decide to move, just to generate heat. Trudging downhill, you keep your eyes low, scanning for signs of life, any twitch of fur or flash of movement. Instead, you find nothing. Except a broken stick that briefly makes your heart leap, until you realize it was snapped by wind, not hooves. Your breath comes in short, cold bursts. You crouch low to study a patch of snow, half convinced you saw something there. You didn't. But the position reminds your body of the posture it takes to sneak up on prey, and your brain, bless it, starts flooding you with phantom memories of roasted meat. Your tongue aches at the thought of grease. You swallow hard. This is survival stripped down to the barest instincts. No calendars, no weather apps, just this burning, maddening hunger and the knowledge that you'll have to outlast this storm of emptiness. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals stored food in times of scarcity. Some think you buried meat in frozen ground to preserve it. Others believe your kind mostly lived feast to famine, relying on daily kills. Either way, you didn't exactly have a root cellar full of snacks. You stop at a rock ledge and sit, not because it's comfortable, but because you're lightheaded. You fish around your belt pouch and pull out what could generously be called snack remnants, a dry bit of sinew, maybe, or possibly a piece of your own hair that got mixed in. You chew it anyway. The wind shifts. You sniff the air automatically. Your ancestors had noses that could detect blood from half a mile away, and you inherited some of that. Unfortunately, all you smell is wet earth, old smoke, and a faint whiff of your own desperation. There was a time, not long ago, when you could have laughed this off. When your people had taken down a giant elk and eaten well for days, tongue, organs, marrow. Even the hooves went into the boiling pot. You remember that with a kind of dreamlike clarity, the way modern people remember their favorite pizza place. Now? You'd kill for a squirrel eyeball. And there are dangers, too, not just from the outside world, but from within. Hunger changes you. Makes you mean. Makes you see people as silhouettes made of calories. There's a reason anthropologists whisper about Neanderthal cannibalism. You might not want to believe it, but hey, just try going 4 days without eating and see how poetic your thoughts stay. Still, you're not there. Not yet. You're just cold, alone, and starving. But you've got strong legs, a sharp mind, and bones built for smashing through the icy wilds of Europe. Bad days don't kill you. Not automatically. You decide to circle back to the cave, hoping maybe some scavenger left prints you can follow, or better, droppings filled with partially digested seeds you could pick through like a sad raccoon. Neanderthals weren't picky. Survival never is. As the light fades, you catch yourself hallucinating for a second, just a flicker. A warm shape, a shadow that might have been a deer, or a memory. You blink, and it's gone. You laugh once, just to hear your own voice. And it echoes back across the empty, hungry world. You wake again, but not because you're rested, because the cold has crept into your joints like ice needles. Your cave isn't shelter anymore, just a gap in a rock wall barely keeping the wind off your spine. You sit up slowly, and your stomach grumbles so hard you swear it echoes. Your body's switching into full-on panic mode now. The energy it has left is being hoarded in the center, heart, brain, lungs, while your limbs feel like frozen logs. You stand, wobble, and breathe through the dizziness. You need something. Anything. So you go digging. Literally. You shuffle outside, scraping at the half-frozen earth like a starving animal. Your hands, numb and cracked, sink into the cold topsoil, trying to reach what's underneath. You're after tubers, those weird underground plant lumps that Neanderthals likely relied on more than we think, especially when meat was scarce. Think of them like ancient potatoes, only uglier, woodier, and somehow wetter when they shouldn't be. You find one. A knotted, grey lump that smells like damp socks and old leaves. You bite into it anyway. It's gritty, bitter, and stringy as twine. It takes forever to chew, and swallowing feels like forcing a pebble down your throat. But hey, calories are calories, and this one doesn't immediately make your tongue swell up or your vision go sideways. Success! You scrape at the ground for more, moving in a slow circle around your cave like a hungry raccoon. Your fingernails crack, and you don't even notice. This is your version of grocery shopping now, clawing through frost-bitten mud for root vegetables that even goats would hesitate to eat. Some researchers believe Neanderthals cooked roots in fire pits, using hot stones to make them slightly less terrible. But today you don't have that luxury. Your fire's gone out, and with the wind howling like it is, it's not coming back unless you catch a lightning bolt with your bare hands. You try a different patch of earth near a shriveled bush and pull up something resembling a carrot, if carrots were soggy, twisted, and full of sand. You chew it. Your body protests at first, but after a minute, your stomach welcomes it with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever who's been told dinner's early. Modern people talk about eating clean, or going raw. You snort at the thought. You're eating dirt, literal dirt, and calling it a win. You remember a story from one of the elders, back before he wandered off into the snow and never returned. He told you about a winter where they survived on roots alone for 12 days. Boiled them. Roasted them. Ate them raw. One guy got so backed up he couldn't walk for 2 days. The other lost a tooth biting through frozen tuber flesh. But they lived. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals had designated gatherers like Homo sapiens did, if some members of the group focused more on plants while others hunted. Some think your kind wasn't that organized. Others believe you were just as thoughtful, just as strategic. But right now, you're not planning a spreadsheet of food rolls. You're chewing through another stringy root and hoping it doesn't give you stomach rot. Eventually, your jaw gets tired. The cold has numbed your lips, and the constant chewing makes your gums ache. Still, you keep going, spitting out the woody parts and swallowing the mushy centers. You find a few more tubers, smaller, thinner, and even more bitter. One is so acrid it makes your eyes water, but you finish it anyway. Then you hit something new. Not a root, not exactly. It's bulbous and a bit spongy. You bite it. Immediately, your mouth floods with the taste of soap and burnt rubber. You gag, spit it out, and wipe your tongue with your sleeve. Okay, not that one. You crouch down again, more slowly this time, because your knees feel like stone. You scrape away another patch of ground and find a clump of something. It's slimy, grayish-white, and smells faintly of old onions. You hesitate. Is it edible? Is it fungus? Is it poison? This is the kind of decision your ancestors made all the time. There's no handy list. No mushroom guide. No YouTuber doing a top 10 deadly plants you shouldn't eat. Just trial, error, and the memory of someone who once took a bite and didn't wake up the next day. You sniff it again, tear off a tiny bit with your teeth, and wait. 10 minutes pass. No nausea. No dizziness. You take another bite, bigger this time. It's fine. Not good. But not deadly. You sit there for a while, chewing cold roots in the snow, your breath fogging in front of you like a tired steam engine. You hear the wind shift. You smell damp soil and a hint of pine. No game animals. No humans. Just you and the buried leftovers of the forest floor. A raven circles overhead and lands nearby, watching you with tilted curiosity. You glance back at it. It flutters to a higher branch. You consider chasing it, if only to eat the bird. But it's too fast. Too clever. And honestly? Probably smarter than you are at this point. You glance down at the pile of eaten roots around you, the stringy husks and slimy stalks. You haven't eaten well, but you've eaten. And for tonight, that might be enough to keep your brain from turning on itself. You head back to the cave, your stomach full but unsatisfied. The roots won't last long. They give you calories, but not the kind that stick to your ribs. You'll be hungry again by morning, if not sooner. And that hunger will come back harder. That's the thing no one tells you, or hunger stacks. Each day without meat adds a layer of fog over your thoughts, makes your muscles weaker, makes you a slower version of the predator you used to be. You crawl back into your blanket of furs, now damp with snow. You lie there, curled like a question mark, wondering how your ancestors survived like this for generations. They were tough. But not invincible. They starved. They got sick. They gambled on bitter roots and strange fungi. Sometimes they won. Sometimes they didn't. You close your eyes and try to dream of mammoth meat and bone marrow stew, of fires that never go out, and caves where the wind can't find you. But even in sleep, your stomach twists. And somewhere in the back of your brain, a quiet little voice says, tomorrow, you'll need more. You wake up chewing. Not on food, on your own tongue. The dream was so vivid. A roasted haunch of reindeer, juices dripping down your chin, fingers slick with fat. You remember the heat, the crackle of the fire, and that unmistakable smell of meat on coals. But there's nothing. Just the raw taste of blood from where you bit yourself, and the reality of another freezing morning. Your jaw aches from clenching in your sleep. Your stomach is starting to feel less like an empty pouch and more like a deep pit that's begun to eat itself. You groan, low and long, and force yourself up. No fire. No animal tracks. No miracle. But today, you try something new. Something old, really, older than fire, older than speech. You look to the trees. You've seen deer nibble bark. Elk rub their antlers against trunks and then turn to chew what's left. Even the wolves sometimes gnaw on twigs. You remember watching, as a child, when the elders stripped the inner bark of a birch tree and boiled it down into a sticky mush. It wasn't good, but it kept them alive through that winter when half the hunters broke their legs chasing bison. So now it's your turn. You shuffle through the snow, find a young pine tree, and start scraping. The outer bark peels away easily, dry, brittle, flaky. Useless. But underneath, there's the good stuff, the cambium layer. Pale, stringy, damp. You peel off a strip with your knife, then bring it to your lips. It smells okay. Resinous. Like tree sap and wet moss. You chew it. It's chewy. Obviously. And the taste? Think bitter celery dipped in cough syrup. Delicious. Okay, not really. But you chew and eventually swallow. Your body perks up a little. It's not a feast, but it's something. Cambium has starch. Starch has sugar. Sugar means fuel. Neanderthals probably didn't eat bark as a first option, but on days like this? They absolutely did. In fact, pine bark was still eaten by people in Scandinavia during famines as recently as the 1800s. You're part of a long, bitter tradition of chewing on trees and pretending it's food. You move to another tree, birch, this time. Its bark is papery and peels away in perfect curls. Useless for chewing, but great for fire starting. You pocket some, just in case. Then you find the cambium again, this time softer. Easier to strip. You chew another handful. You're starting to feel full, not satisfied, but at least your stomach has stopped actively trying to convince you to eat your own fingers. As the sun rises, or rather, as the grey becomes slightly less grey, you spot something scattered across the snow, pine needles. You gather a handful and crush them in your palms. The smell is strong, sharp, fresh, kind of like citrus. Your body reacts before your brain catches up. You want this. You need this. Pine needles, as weird as it sounds, are loaded with vitamin C. Not that you know what that is, but your body recognizes something good when it finds it. Neanderthals probably brewed them into tea, and now, so do you. You walk back to the cave and get your stone bowl, fill it with snow, and add the crushed needles. You don't have fire, but you do have time. So you wait. Let it melt. Let the needles steep. Eventually, the water turns pale green and you drink it. It's not hot. It's not even lukewarm. But it tastes like survival. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals made teas or just chewed medicinal plants raw. Some evidence from dental plaque suggests they did both. One individual was found with traces of yarrow and chamomile in their teeth, neither of which tastes good raw, so the theory is that they had other purposes, pain relief, digestion, maybe even spiritual rituals. But today, your pine needle slush is purely practical. You don't need to pray, you need to not die. Feeling slightly less hollow, you head back out. You spot another tree, this one older, with peeling bark. You scrape at it and find something hidden underneath. Not bark. Not wood. But lichen. That strange, crusty stuff that clings to rocks and trees like forgotten wallpaper. You know this one. You've seen deer eat it. Even the rain do. It's slow food, hard to chew, harder to digest, but it can be done. You peel off a handful, crush it between your palms, and chew slowly. It tastes like nothing. Then it tastes like soil. Then it tastes like despair. You eat it anyway. Lichens are weird. Half fungus, half algae. A biological team-up that's older than most of your species. Some kinds are toxic. Some aren't. You're gambling every time. But you've eaten worse. As you chew, you remember something your uncle once said, half joking, if it doesn't taste like death, it's probably not food. He meant that the best parts of the kill were always the bitter ones, the liver, the kidneys, the brain. The things that made you gag but kept you strong. He died young. Got swept into a crevasse during a hunt. But the advice stuck. So here you are, chewing bark, sipping pine water, and nibbling on moss like a lost goat. The weird part? It's working. Your body isn't thrilled, but it's functioning. Your legs feel steadier. Your hands don't shake as much. The coal's still biting, but your brain isn't swirling with visions of roast boar anymore. That said, you still miss meat. Deeply. The way it smells, the way it sizzles, the feeling of hot fat trickling down your chin. Roots and bark can keep you alive, but only meat restores you. You feel it in your bones. You lean against the nearest tree, licking your fingers for some imaginary last drop of resin, and let your eyes wander. You watch the wind move through the branches. You listen for birds. You strain to hear the low, loping footsteps of something big, elk, maybe. Or bear. You'd settle for a fox at this point. Even a weasel. But there's nothing. Just the quiet. You rest a while longer, then tear off one more strip of bark, roll it into your pouch, and start walking again. You've got a few hours of light left, and you need to find more. More bark. More lichen. Maybe even, if the gods of desperation smile on you, a squirrel. Or a half-buried carcass with enough meat left to scrape. But that's for later. Right now, your mouth is full of wood, your stomach is full of bitterness, and your heart is full of something strange and stubborn. Hope? Maybe. Or just the grim knowledge that Neanderthals like you didn't survive by waiting for good days. You survived the bad ones. Your jaw hurts. Not just a little. It aches down through the hinge and into your neck, like you've been gnawing on rocks. Which, to be fair, you sort of have. Pine bark. Tree lichen. Frozen roots. Everything you've put in your mouth over the past 3 days has been either crunchy, chewy, or deeply disappointing. Your teeth feel loose. Your tongue's rough. You miss soup, not that you've ever had real soup, but you imagine it as warm water that tastes like meat dreams. But today, your attention turns to something even more desperate. Bones. Not fresh ones. Not from a recent kill. No, these are old. Dried. Cracked. Half buried in the snow, just beyond a cluster of thorny bushes where the crows were dancing a few days ago. You find them by accident, really, tripping over a ridge in the snow and landing face first into what used to be a reindeer's hind leg. You sit up slowly, brushing powder off your chest, and stare. The carcass is mostly gone. Just a skeleton now, ribs splayed out like a fan, a few scraps of dried sinew clinging to joints. But it's something. And to a starving Neanderthal? That's enough. Your fingers are numb, but you reach down and grab one of the long bones, a femur, you think, and press it against a rock. Then, with your other hand, you lift another stone. A flat one. Heavy. And you start smashing. Hard. Again. And again. It takes a while. Longer than you want to admit. But finally, with a sickening crack, the bone splits open, and there it is. Marrow. Sticky. Pinkish. Cold. But not rotten. You lean in without hesitation and suck. Loudly. Desperately. It coats your tongue like cold butter that's just turned to jelly. And it's good. Not good like fire-roasted elk, but good like your body recognizes it as precious. Bone marrow is rich in fat. And fat is gold. Historians agree Neanderthals valued it immensely, sometimes more than the meat itself. You didn't always have fires big enough to roast an entire animal, but you could always smash a bone. In fact, some archaeologists believe your kind stashed broken bones in caches to come back to later, Neanderthal pantries, of a sort. You get through 3 more bones before the cold sets into your fingers too deep. Then you wrap the best of them in a strip of hide and tuck it under your arm. It'll freeze solid tonight, but maybe you'll have the strength tomorrow to thaw it beside a fire, if you can get one going. You stand, wiping blood and fat from your face. You feel lifted. Not full, but sharpened. Like your brain just booted back up after running on fumes. With your strength returning, you decide to scavenge the rest of the site. You find more bones, a shoulder blade with a few dry tendons still clinging to it, a cracked skull filled with half-frozen sludge that might once have been brain. You scrape it out with a stick, trying not to think too hard about what exactly you're eating. You even dig into the snow nearby, hoping for more. And you find something else. A paw print. Wolf. Fresh. You freeze. Your instincts do a little spin inside your skull. There are wolves nearby. Probably the same ones who stripped this carcass. They might be watching you now. And if they are, well, they're just as hungry as you. You make a slow turn, scanning the trees. Nothing. Yet. Wolves are both competitors and collaborators. Sometimes your ancestors followed them, stealing from their kills. Sometimes they followed you. And sometimes, when desperation blurred the lines, you fought for the same scraps. Historians still debate how closely Neanderthals interacted with wolves. Some believe you had an almost parasitic relationship with them, trailing each other across the tundra, always watching. Others argue there was an early bond there, perhaps even a hint of the wolf-dog partnership that would define later humans. But today, you're not thinking about ancient partnerships. You're thinking about how many of them are out there, and whether you're on the menu. You pick up a long femur as a makeshift club, tuck the rest of your prize under your arm, and start backing away. Slow. Steady. No sudden moves. You make it halfway up the ridge before you hear the first howl. It's distant. But not distant enough. You start to run. Not a full sprint, your legs can't handle that, but the fastest shambling pace your frozen knees will allow. Every few steps, you glance behind. Nothing. Just snow, wind, and the ghosts of predators. By the time you reach your cave again, your chest is heaving. You drop the bones on the floor and collapse beside them, your breath clouding in front of you. The marrow's still sticky on your lips. Your tongue runs across it again, savoring. You survived. Barely. But you survived. As night falls, you nestle deeper into the cave. You gnaw the tendon off a shoulder blade like it's a delicacy, cracking it with your teeth. Your ancestors would be proud. Or horrified. It's hard to tell. You think back to the cracked skull, the gooey insides. You remember the weird satisfaction of it. How it felt like a secret being unlocked. Brain was always the weird prize, the last part you ate, but the one you remembered longest. Some scientists think Neanderthals got much of their omega-3s and complex fats from eating brains. Others are still unsure, especially given how fragile brain tissue is, and how little remains of it in archaeological digs. But one thing's certain, you didn't let it go to waste. Not when food was rare. Not when the cold could kill you in your sleep. You suck the last of the marrow from the hollow bone and toss it toward the fire pit. It clinks against stone. Useless now. Just a husk. But you? You're still here. Your dreams that night are vivid again. This time, it's not meat you're dreaming of, but a hot spring. Steam rising around your shoulders. A bowl of warm bone broth cradled in your hands. A fire crackling behind you. You wake up smiling. Then you remember where you are. The cold. The dark. The scraping hunger still nestled in your ribs like a second heart. But there's marrow in your belly. And old bones in your cave. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, there might be more. It's nearly dawn, though you only know that because the color of the sky has shifted from dark charcoal to a slightly less ominous shade of blue-gray. You slept in fits, cold, cramping fits that left your legs tangled and your neck locked at a right angle. But you woke up alive, and that counts for something. Your hands, stiff and swollen from yesterday's scavenging, aren't much use at first. You rub them together, blow on them, stick them under your armpits, then slap them against the cave wall in frustration. The cold laughs in your face. The marrow helped, sure, but it didn't fix everything. Your body still wants meat. Hot meat. Roasted meat. Not brain goo on a stick. Today you decide to do something riskier. You're going to find predators. You don't mean to hunt them, obviously. You're not that desperate. Not yet. But you can hunt what they hunt, or more realistically, steal it. Because where predators go, meat follows. And where meat goes, leftovers usually aren't far behind. If you're lucky, you'll find scraps. If you're very lucky, you'll find a fresh kill and get there before the wolves finish. You tuck your sharpest stone blade into your fur belt, grab your makeshift club, a former femur, now slightly splintered, and set off into the woods. The snow crunches under your feet with that damp, slushy texture that says, hey, this is all going to freeze again tonight and ruin your ankles. But for now, it's manageable. You move quickly, zigzagging through brush, keeping low when you hear movement that might not be the wind. After a while, you see them, tracks. Not yours. Not human. These are deep, padded prints with claws at the tips. Large, too. Wolves, definitely. Multiple. And from the depth of the prints? Full grown. You follow. Now, to be clear, this isn't a brilliant plan. It's barely a plan at all. But you've seen others do it before. One of the old hunters, strong as a bear, used to track wolves and wait for them to leave a kill. Once, he even scared them off by banging two rocks together and screaming like a banshee. You're not him. But maybe you can fake it. The tracks lead you down a narrow gully between two ridges crusted with ice and half-dead trees. You slip once, catch yourself. Every noise feels too loud, your own heartbeat might be giving you away. Then you smell it. Blood. Not a lot. Not fresh. But it's there, mixed with the coppery bite of meat and the funk of predator musk. You drop to your knees and crawl the last few steps to the top of the rise. There it is. A carcass. Small. A deer. Maybe young, maybe just thin. Ribs exposed. Stomach already torn open. A few tufts of fur scattered like dead leaves. You see the shape of one wolf, still circling the kill. The others are nowhere in sight. You crouch lower. Breathe shallow. Think. You can wait, hope it moves on. Or you can make your move now and hope you don't get torn apart by something faster, stronger, and more teeth-equipped. You choose option C, throw a rock and pray. You find a fist-sized chunk of frozen earth, hurl it toward the trees behind the wolf, and duck. The rock hits a branch with a crack. The wolf freezes, ears pricked. Then, just as you hoped, it bolts, not from you, but from the idea that something bigger might be coming. You give it 10 seconds. Then you run. You scramble down the slope, almost tripping over yourself, and land beside the carcass in a crouch. You don't think. You just cut. Your blade slices through dried skin and half-frozen sinew. You tear off a leg, not worrying about neatness. This is speed food. Panic food. Theft food. You grab what you can, some ribs, a chunk of thigh, a strip of neck, and bundle it in a swath of hide. Then you run again. You hear a howl in the distance, furious and rising. They know. And they're not thrilled about the tip you left them. You make it back to the cave just as your lungs start to burn. Your prize is still warm in places. That means fresh. That means it hasn't spoiled. That means your day just got a little better. You don't have fire, not yet. But that doesn't stop you from sinking your teeth into the leg meat, tearing it loose with slow, careful chews. It's tough. Chewy. But it's real. Gamey. Slightly metallic. And better than anything you've tasted in days. You pause halfway through and just sigh. It's not joy. Not really. But it's relief. That's a currency now. Later, once the meat is gone, you go back for the bones. You boil snow in a bowl lined with coals and steep the bones in it, hoping for some kind of broth. It's weak, grey, and mostly warm water, but it's hot, and that alone makes it magic. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals made bone broth or simply cracked the bones open to get to the marrow. Some think you lack the containers to truly cook, others point to charred stone-lined pits that hint at rudimentary soup making. Either way, what you're doing now, it feels ancient. It feels right. As the sky darkens again, you settle deeper into your cave. You've got meat in your belly, fat on your lips, a pile of bones beside you that, even in this world, count as treasure. You fall asleep with your hands still sticky, your face greasy, your body humming with warmth. But more than anything, more than the protein, the fat, the marrow, it's the hope that sustains you. The idea that tomorrow might be better. That the wolves might leave another kill. That your body might grow strong again. And if not, you'll steal again. You'll always find a way. You wake to a sound. Not wind. Not snow. Not your own stomach doing its daily opera of complaints. No, this is different. It's a wet crunch. A rustle. A quick, scurrying shift of weight on frost-hardened soil. Something alive is nearby. Your eyes snap open. Your ears perk. You freeze, letting the noise fill the silence. There it is again, just outside the cave mouth. You don't move yet. You listen. Because movement is risk. But sound? Sound tells you everything if you're quiet enough. It's small. Not heavy. No panting. No footfalls deep enough to leave prints you could hear. Probably not a wolf. Not even a fox. But a rodent? Now that could be breakfast. You inch your hand toward your club, the femur, still stained with dried marrow, and grip it. Then you take a breath, roll forward onto your knees, and peek around the rock edge of the cave. There. A snow hare. Fat from the season, slow from the cold, chewing on bark like it's on a brunch date with a pine tree. It hasn't seen you yet. You crouch, step, crouch again. It twitches. You freeze. A light breeze moves across your back, and the hare lifts its nose. Sniffs. Your heart races. You lift your club. And just as it takes one last innocent nibble, you throw. The club connects with a thunk. The hare flails, then flops. You exhale. Not a triumphant roar, just a quiet, tired breath of relief. You scramble over and collect your prize. It's still warm, barely bruised, and miraculously whole. In your hands, it feels like a gift from the cold itself. But you're not done yet. You've caught something. And now comes the ancient, sacred, highly gross part, cleaning it. You've done this before. Skin the fur carefully, slice down the belly, peel the hide back like you're unwrapping the worst birthday present ever. The warmth of the inside steams in the cold air, and you grimace as you pull the guts out and toss them aside. You know better than to eat them raw, parasites are a party no one wants. Once it's cleaned, you go to your fire pit. Still cold. No coal. Just ash and rock. But you've been planning for this. You pull the birch bark from your pouch, the pieces you saved days ago, and stack it with dry moss you peeled from a stone wall at sunrise. You strike flint to pyrite and yes, after a few maddening flicks, a spark catches. The flame dances to life. You feed it. You guard it. You whisper to it like a nervous parent. And when it finally flares bright enough to cook by, you place the hare on a stone beside the flames, rotating it slowly. The smell is instant and heavenly. Rich. Gamey. Like the woods if they were edible. You sit back and let it roast, hand on your belly, not because you're full, but because it remembers how to be full. Just the scent alone feels like a miracle. But you also know, don't waste a thing. As it cooks, you check the guts. You find the stomach, still full of bark and half-digested leaves, and toss that far away. But the liver? The kidneys? These are yours. You roast them on hot stones until they're stiff and shriveled, then chew them carefully. The texture is gritty, metallic, weird, but every bite is a vitamin-packed treasure. Historians agree Neanderthals were organ eaters. In fact, there's more evidence for that than there is for muscle meat. You didn't hunt for thighs, you hunted for livers, brains, fat pads. The good stuff. The parts modern people throw out with a grimace were your survival menu. You even roast the feet for marrow. Split the small bones. Lick what you can find from the tiny cracks. And the fur? You clean it. Scrape it. You might stitch it into a pouch or layer it onto your sleeping mat. Nothing goes unused. Nothing goes unthanked. When the hare's body is golden and sizzling, you pull it from the fire. You don't wait. You tear into it, fingers burning, mouth watering. The flesh peels back easily, juice is hot on your lips. You grunt softly as your body drinks it in. This is the first fresh kill you've had in too long. You eat everything. Bone tips, soft cartilage, the tough muscle around the jaw. You even bite off the ears. And as you gnaw the final scraps from the spine, you let yourself feel something dangerous. Content. But not for long. Because a sound cuts through the trees. You sit up straight, straining. Footsteps. Not animal. Human. You're on your feet before you think. You stash the bones, stamp the fire low, and press your back to the cave wall, heart pounding. Then the voices. 2 of them. Maybe 3. Deep, rough. Familiar? Maybe. You inch forward. Peer out. And there through the trees, you see them. The others. Your people. They're thinner than you remember. Faces drawn. But they're walking upright. Carrying spears. One of them drags a sled made from bark and sticks. On it? A large, dead boar. Your mouth falls open. You don't shout. Not yet. You whistle, sharp, low, and specific. The call your group uses to say I'm here, and I'm not a bear. They pause. Heads turn. And then one of them, your cousin, the one with the crooked nose, waves. You breathe again. You step into the light. They smile. So do you. But deep down, part of you knows, they'll ask what you've eaten. What you've done to survive. And you'll have to decide which parts of the story to tell. Maybe not the brain goo. Or the bugs. Or what's coming next, when even hairs vanish. But for now, you join them. And you feast. You wake to a sound. Not wind. Not snow. Not your own stomach doing its daily opera of complaints. No, this is different. It's a wet crunch. A rustle. A quick, scurrying shift of weight on frost-hardened soil. Something alive is nearby. Your eyes snap open. Your ears perk. You freeze, letting the noise fill the silence. There it is again, just outside the cave mouth. You don't move yet. You listen. Because movement is risk. But sound? Sound tells you everything if you're quiet enough. It's small. Not heavy. No panting. No footfalls deep enough to leave prints you could hear. Probably not a wolf. Not even a fox. But a rodent? Now that could be breakfast. You inch your hand toward your club, the femur, still stained with dried marrow, and grip it. Then you take a breath, roll forward onto your knees, and peek around the rock edge of the cave. There. A snow hare. Fat from the season, slow from the cold, chewing on bark like it's on a brunch date with a pine tree. It hasn't seen you yet. You crouch, step, crouch again. It twitches. You freeze. A light breeze moves across your back, and the hare lifts its nose. Sniffs. Your heart races. You lift your club. And just as it takes one last innocent nibble, You throw. The club connects with a thunk. The hair flails, then flops. You exhale. Not a triumphant roar, just a quiet, tired breath of relief. You scramble over and collect your prize. It's still warm, barely bruised, and miraculously whole. In your hands, it feels like a gift from the cold itself. But you're not done yet. You've caught something. And now comes the ancient, sacred, highly gross part, cleaning it. You've done this before. Skin the fur carefully, slice down the belly, peel the hide back like you're unwrapping the worst birthday present ever. The warmth of the inside steams in the cold air, and you grimace as you pull the guts out and toss them aside. You know better than to eat them raw. Parasites are a party no one wants. Once it's cleaned, you go to your fire pit. Still cold. No coal. Just ash and rock. But you've been planning for this. You pull the birch bark from your pouch, the pieces you saved days ago, and stack it with dry moss you peeled from a stone wall at sunrise. You strike flint to pyrite and yes, after a few maddening flicks, a spark catches. The flame dances to life. You feed it. You guard it. You whisper to it like a nervous parent. And when it finally flares bright enough to cook by, you place the hair on a stone beside the flames, rotating it slowly. The smell is instant and heavenly. Rich. Gamey. Like the woods if they were edible. You sit back and let it roast, hand on your belly, not because you're full, but because it remembers how to be full. Just the scent alone feels like a miracle. But you also know, don't waste a thing. As it cooks, you check the guts. You find the stomach, still full of bark and half-digested leaves, and toss that far away. But the liver? The kidneys? These are yours. You roast them on hot stones until they're stiff and shriveled, then chew them carefully. The texture is gritty, metallic, weird, but every bite is a vitamin-packed treasure. Historians agree Neanderthals were organ eaters. In fact, there's more evidence for that than there is for muscle meat. You didn't hunt for thighs, you hunted for livers. Brains. Fat pads. The good stuff. The parts modern people throw out with a grimace were your survival menu. You even roast the feet for marrow. Split the small bones. Lick what you can find from the tiny cracks. And the fur? You clean it. Scrape it. You might stitch it into a pouch or layer it onto your sleeping mat. Nothing goes unused. Nothing goes unthanked. When the hare's body is golden and sizzling, you pull it from the fire. You don't wait. You tear into it, fingers burning, mouth watering. The flesh peels back easily, juice is hot on your lips. You grunt softly as your body drinks it in. This is the first fresh kill you've had in too long. You eat everything. Bone tips, soft cartilage, the tough muscle around the jaw. You even bite off the ears. And as you gnaw the final scraps from the spine, you let yourself feel something dangerous. Content. But not for long. Because a sound cuts through the trees. You sit up straight, straining. Footsteps. Not animal. Human. You're on your feet before you think. You stash the bones, stamp the fire low, and press your back to the cave wall, heart pounding. Then the voices. 2 of them. Maybe 3. Deep, rough. Familiar? Maybe. You inch forward. Peer out. And there through the trees, you see them. The others. Your people. They're thinner than you remember. Faces drawn. But they're walking upright. Carrying spears. One of them drags a sled made from bark and sticks. On it? A large, dead boar. Your mouth falls open. You don't shout. Not yet. You whistle, sharp, low, and specific. The call your group uses to say I'm here, and I'm not a bear. They pause. Heads turn. And then one of them, your cousin, the one with the crooked nose, waves. You breathe again. You step into the light. They smile. So do you. But deep down, part of you knows, they'll ask what you've eaten. What you've done to survive. And you'll have to decide which parts of the story to tell. Maybe not the brain goo. Or the bugs. Or what's coming next, when even hairs vanish. But for now, you join them. And you feast. You wake up sore. Not heroic sore. Not I built a hut and saved a child sore. This is the kind of ache that comes from sleeping too close to a root and getting tackled by a hawk the day before. Your back's stiff, your legs feel like you've walked to the moon and back, and your neck? Let's not even talk about the kink that's going to haunt you like a ghost for the next 3 days. But you're up. Because there's a rumor floating around the campfire like the scent of burnt marrow, someone found mushrooms. Now, food in your world is a seesaw between could nourish you and could absolutely kill you. And mushrooms? Oh, mushrooms are the poster child of that gamble. But when meat is scarce, and bird nests are empty, and your cousin already licked the inside of your cooking pouch in desperation, fungi start to look like gourmet options. You head out with the scout who spotted them, an older woman with a bad knee and a wicked eye for edible things. She doesn't talk much. Just points with her chin and moves through the forest like she's part of it. You follow, cautious, alert, and maybe a little hungry enough to hallucinate colors. Soon, she stops. Points. There, near the base of a mossy log, clustered in tight bunches, mushrooms. Pale caps. Delicate gills. Some brown. Some ghost white. Others shaped like they belong in a fantasy storybook about elves and death. She grunts. You crouch. She picks a few, sniffing, checking the undersides. She hands you one. You try not to flinch. You've seen what happens when people guess wrong with mushrooms. Historians know that Neanderthals had a decent eye for plant life. Their teeth and bone chemistry show signs of medicinal herbs, legumes, and fibrous roots. Some remains even have traces of penicillium mold, suggesting your kind may have accidentally, or cleverly, dosed themselves with antibiotics. As for mushrooms? That's a toss-up. No direct proof they foraged fungi on purpose. But some researchers argue that certain Neanderthal groups knew which were safe, passed down by imitation or bitter trial and error, especially when starvation made the risk seem worth it. You smell the mushroom. Earthy. Damp. Faintly sweet. She nods. You pop it into your mouth. Chew. Wait. It's chewy, yeah. Kind of rubbery. But not bad. Like forest tofu. No numbness. No throat closing. No hallucinated saber-tooths dancing around a fire. You swallow. You live. Congratulations. You've officially entered the forager's lottery and won. You gather more. Only the types she indicates. She slaps your hand away once when you reach for a blue one shaped like an ear. Wolf food, she mutters. Or corpse food. You nod. Say nothing. By midday, you've collected enough for a decent stew. You even find a handful of nuts, half rotten and clinging to the dirt, and a soft patch of sour berries that taste like they're arguing with your tongue. Back at camp, you boil water in a carved-out stone basin. Add the mushrooms. The nuts. A few leafy things that no one's allergic to, yet. The broth turns murky. Smells like compost. But it's warm. And thick. And you slurp it like it's been served at a 5-star Neanderthal bistro called Shea Dirt. Others gather. They sip. No one dies. That alone feels like a festival. Later, after bowls are licked clean and everyone is poking at their teeth with twigs, a quiet argument starts near the fire. Are these safe long-term? Someone asks. If we dry them. Only if we dry the right ones, the old scout answers. Dry the wrong ones, and the meat eats you. No one laughs. Because you all remember what happened last season when someone tried eating that waxy red root. The one that smelled like honey but made everyone see colors that didn't exist. One guy claimed he saw the moon blink. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals passed down foraging knowledge by teaching, someone says, picking mushroom bits from their beard. Or if it was just trial and error. Someone else snorts. Bet it was mostly error. You agree silently. Your gut feels fine now, but there's always the risk of waking up at midnight with your stomach trying to tap dance. As the fire crackles, you look around. The group's closer now. Talking. Laughing. It's amazing what a shared risk and a strange soup can do. You think about that. How food, good or bad, ties people together. You remember a time when your mother made stew from bark, mushrooms, and bits of fat scraped from a mammoth hide. She called it the chewy dinner. You laughed. Ate it. Survived. Food wasn't always joy. But it was always a ritual. You lean back. Belly warm. Smoke drifting. Someone starts humming a tune, barely more than a few notes. A melody passed down, maybe. Or made up on the spot. You close your eyes and hum along. Because tonight, you're not starving. Not quite. And in your world, that's as close to a miracle as it gets. You wake up hungry again. Shocking, right? One night of mushroom broth and laughter, and somehow you're not permanently satisfied. The fire's died down to ash. A few people are already up, sharpening tools, poking at their feet, quietly arguing over whether they should head south or wait for signs of deer. You stretch. Your back cracks like firewood. The cold air bites at your nose. You want fat. Not meat. Not bark. Not leaves that pretend to be food. You want fat, the slippery, oily, calorie-dense miracle that makes your brain purr and your belly go thank you. But there's none left. The bones from that boar? Boiled to paste. The marrow's gone. Even the fire rocks were licked clean. So, when someone suggests, let's try fishing, you don't even argue. You just nod, grab a basket, and start walking. Fishing, in your world, is a lot of things. Sometimes it's brilliant. Sometimes you catch a shimmering grey beauty with fins like knives and a belly full of oils. Other times it's standing knee-deep in water for 5 hours with numb legs and exactly 0 results, unless you count the time someone caught a really angry frog. You and 3 others head to the river, a silty, winding thing with cold, slow water and smooth rocks that seem to move when you're not looking. The elder leading the group is carrying a stick. Not a spear, just a stick. Sharpened at one end. That's the technology. Historians believe Neanderthals may have used spears to fish, or possibly fashioned traps from sticks, reeds, or even bundled branches. No fishhooks have ever been found associated with Neanderthal sites, but some argue they might have used sharpened bone points or simply trapped fish in low water when it got cold. You're about to go the stab and hope route. You wade into the river slowly, your legs disappearing under the surface, water crawling up to your thighs. It's glacial. Your toes vanish from feeling almost instantly. A tiny yelp escapes you as something slimy brushes past your ankle. Then you wait. Still. Patient. You watch. The others do the same. Occasionally, someone shifts, splashes, swears softly. A fish darts through a patch of sunlight. Someone misses by a mile. You breathe slowly. You become the river. You are water. You are patience. You are hungry. Finally, a shadow glides under your legs. Long, fast, flickering. Your spear moves before you can think. You jab down, quick, sloppy, and miss. But it's close. You regroup. Eyes sharp. The next time a shape darts by, you strike lower, like you've seen the elder do. The spear makes contact. A spurt of bubbles. A brief flailing. You've got it. It's small, maybe the length of your forearm. Silvery. Twitching. But it's fish. It's fat. You stumble back to the bank, holding it aloft like a war prize. The elder grunts in approval. Eventually, everyone gets something. Not much, 6 fish between 4 people. But that's 6 more than none. Back at camp, you gut them carefully. You've done this before: slice, scoop, rinse. Fish are clean kills. They don't bite back. Don't screech. They just flop, and then they don't. You roast them over the fire. No spices. No salt. Just smoke and heat. The skin blisters. The oil drips into the coals with tiny sizzling pops that sound like applause. And oh, the fat. You bite into it and your brain lights up like fire. Rich. Slippery. Soft. It coats your tongue, your throat, your soul. You forget you're half naked in a frozen landscape surrounded by predators. For 2 minutes, you are a creature of contentment. The kids gnaw the fins. The elders crunch the heads. You scrape the backbone clean and suck out the spinal gunk. You've never been prouder of anything in your life. Then someone mentions the old legend. The fish that shines like the moon. Big enough to feed a whole clan. Lives deep downriver, near the waterfall. Only appears after full moons. Smells like flowers. Tastes like fire. You all laugh. But part of you wonders, what if? Quirky tales like these survive across time. Myths of food monsters. Beast feasts. Sacred prey. Some archaeologists believe Neanderthal groups may have had proto-legends, oral traditions about where to find food or where not to look. Places you never hunt. Trees you don't touch. Animals that, if you eat them, make you dream in reverse. One researcher insists some cave paintings show fish surrounded by fire symbols. Another scoffs and says that's probably just water dripping over soot. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals attached meaning to food beyond the belly. Whether eating certain animals meant power. Whether certain meals marked transitions, child to adult, weak to strong, lost to found. But when you finish your fish and feel the last of the oil slide down your throat, you feel something. Not religion. Not myth. Just rightness. Like this is what your body was made for. Later that night, you clean the bones. Save a few good ones. Try carving one into a crude scoop. It snaps. You try again. You sleep with your belly not quite full, but satisfied. You smell faintly of fish. There's grease under your fingernails. You dream of rivers that run uphill. Of fish that leap onto shore voluntarily. Of days when food just appears. But morning will come. And the fish will be gone. And your stomach will speak again. And you will answer. The day begins not with hunger, but with cold. Not bundle up and grab a latte cold. No. This is teeth aching, knuckle cracking, eyeballs hurt when you blink kind of cold. Frost clings to the fur pelt you slept under. Your breath emerges in ghosty little puffs. Your nose is a numb, decorative accessory. And your stomach? Quiet. Not because it's full, please, it hasn't been full in 3 weeks, but because it's too cold to complain. But don't get excited. Hunger is never far behind. It's just waiting for the fire to get going. You rise, groaning, every joint protesting. Your toes are pinkish. Your fingers barely flex. Someone mutters nearby about missing the sun. Another mutters about missing anything edible. It's winter. And winter, in your Neanderthal world, is the boss level of survival. No plants. No berries. Even the bark's brittle and useless. Animals migrate or hide. The river's half frozen and gives you nothing but stiff fingers. This is the part where you remember what it really means to live without agriculture, without storage, without canned soup or emergency protein bars. This is the part where bad days become worse, and the menu shrinks down to one grisly option: bones. Leftovers. Scraps. Frozen remnants from that aurochs you took down weeks ago. The ones buried in the snow to keep predators away and, ideally, to ferment just a little. Because even bad meat becomes slightly less bad when it's been softened by time and frost. You help dig through the snowbank where the bones were stored. It's like opening an ancient, meat-flavored time capsule. You find a cracked femur, still greasy in the middle. Some ribs. A shoulder blade with a gnawed edge where someone, presumably you, got desperate last week. The marrow's mostly gone. But there's still connective tissue. Cartilage. Bits of sinew. Ice-crisp tendons that might unfreeze into something chewable. You haul them back to camp. Fire's up. Small, reluctant, more smoke than heat. You roast the bones like treasure. They hiss and pop. A few spark. Steam curls from the edges as they thaw. You scrape and nibble, trying to pry out anything vaguely edible. A glistening smear of tendon? A chewy flap of gristle? Into the mouth it goes. It's not good. But it's calories. Archaeologists have found evidence that Neanderthals reprocessed bones multiple times. They cracked them open, boiled them in heated stones, scraped every surface. Some even ground them down to extract fatty residue. In times of famine, nothing was wasted, not even the burnt bits or the bone dust. You remember the trick someone taught you: heat a rock in the fire, drop it into a skin pouch filled with snow and bones, and let it simmer. The resulting sludge is drinkable. Kind of. If you pretend really hard. You sip the lukewarm, meaty water. It tastes like desperation, with a hint of smoke. Someone nearby burps. A small, bone-boiled belch. Delicacy, they joke. We're living like kings. You laugh, which is generous considering your lips are half frozen and your tongue is coated in something that used to be part of a tendon. A few people try chewing on the knuckles. They suck on cartilage like it's candy. One person quietly slips a bit of fat to their child. You look away. You do the same. And you notice, this isn't just eating. It's tending. To one another. To tradition. To survival. You all know this isn't ideal, but it's not new either. Some say Neanderthals were big on sharing. That food was communal by default. A necessity, not charity. When there's barely enough for one, you stretch it for three. Not out of nobility, but because tomorrow you might be the one hoping for a bite. There's one bone left, an ulnar or something else unpronounceable. You pass it to the old man with 2 fingers and half a beard. He nods, cracks it, and sucks the inside like a child with a jawbreaker. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals had structured food roles, someone murmurs beside you. Like hunters versus cooks. Or if it was all just whoever could move that day. You nod. You've seen both. Some people can't hunt anymore but remember how to build the bone boil pouch, how to test meat with a flick of the nose, how to spit out a tendon just right. Your role today is chewer. Tomorrow, who knows? Later, someone starts singing. It's not a song like you'd recognize. Just a droning, rising hum. Wordless. A tone that echoes in your ribs. A few others join. It blends with the wind. The fire flickers with the beat. The sound becomes your dinner music. You close your eyes and listen. You pretend the broth you're sipping is rich. That the bones were never scavenged from a snowbank. That the cold isn't creeping back down your neck. You imagine the big hunt. The future feast. But for now, it's bones. Bones and breath and fire and hope. And, really, that's not nothing. You wake up to snow. Not a dusting. Not a light, poetic swirl. No, this is the did we get buried alive kind of snow. It presses down on the hide flap of your shelter. It softens the sound of the world into something hushed and otherworldly. Even your thoughts feel muffled. You sit up slowly, brushing frost from your eyelashes. Your breath fogs the air like steam from a cracked pipe. There's a brief moment where you think, maybe today we don't eat. Not because you're giving up, but because, what's left? And then someone throws a frozen turd at your head. You flinch, yelp, and turn. It wasn't meant as an attack, just a joke. One of the younger ones grins at you, holding up a similar brownish lump and saying, "Guess what this means?" You squint. You think. Then it hits you, or not the turd, thankfully, but the meaning. Droppings. Fresh ones. From something alive. You leap up like someone shouted cake, and follow the others to the edge of camp, where delicate little divots mark the path of an animal. Hoofed, from the look of it. Not large, no mammoth party, but still. Meat. So begins the most depressing hunt of your life. The snow is deep and powdery. Your knees vanish with every step. There's no sun, just a flat, white sky and the wind, slicing through your fur like it knows your secrets. You follow the trail for what feels like hours. It winds through trees, down a slope, across a creek that isn't quite frozen. The tracks stop near a rock outcrop. You crouch. Look. Listen. Silence. Then, a flicker of movement. It's a goat. A shaggy, winter-hardened mountain goat. Scrawny, bony, with ribs like ridges on a washboard. But still alive. Still full of blood. And maybe, just maybe, still carrying enough fat to make the next 2 days bearable. Problem is, it's perched halfway up a slick, icy incline like gravity is just a suggestion. You sigh. Of course it is. The others are whispering plans. Go left. No, right. Flank it. Wait for it to climb down. You hold up a hand. You have an idea. This is one of those moments where you remember that Neanderthals weren't just brawny food machines, they were clever. Adaptive. Capable of thinking laterally. Of working with terrain. You take a branch. Start scraping the snow downhill. Making noise. Moving toward the goat like a lazy avalanche. Not fast enough to scare it, but just enough to make it think it needs to move. It does. Wrong direction, at first. Then it doubles back, exactly where you want it. You ready your spear. So do the others. There's a hasty, clumsy scramble of feet. One person slips. Another yells. The goat panics, bolts downhill. And right into your waiting arms. Kind of. Mostly it slams into your side and nearly knocks you off your feet. But your spear finds flesh. It shudders. Kicks. Tries to flee, but one of your group finishes it cleanly with a rock to the skull. It's over in seconds. You sit there, panting, with goat blood soaking through your hide leggings and a dumb smile plastered on your face. Success is messy. The body's light. Not emaciated, but not fat either. Enough meat for maybe one proper meal and some soup. But oh, the organs. That's the prize. Neanderthals weren't squeamish. You take the heart, the liver, the kidneys, especially the kidneys. Fatty, dense, rich. A dream. You build a quick fire in a hollow by the rock wall. The wind can't reach it there. The goat is skinned and sectioned fast, practice makes perfect. The liver is eaten almost raw, sliced and warmed over embers. It's bitter and metallic and glorious. The kidneys sizzle on a hot stone, their fatty insides bubbling like something from a medieval cauldron. You eat in silence. Focused. Grateful. Someone jokes, better than last week's bark sandwich. You smirk. Fair point. Quirky survival fact. There's strong evidence Neanderthals prioritized internal organs, often eating them before muscle meat. Some think it's because of the high nutrient value. Others say it's taste. And some suggest it was ritual, that eating the liver or heart first held meaning. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals believed in a food hierarchy, fat over flesh, liver over leg, or if it was just biological instinct honed by generations of cold, hungry mornings. You chew a strip of lung. It's chewy. Slightly rubbery. Not great. But not nothing. You bundle the rest to carry home, wrapped in hide, tied with sinew. The bones will go in the stew pile. The hooves? Maybe boiled for gelatin. The hide? Scraped and stretched. Nothing wasted. Ever. Back at camp, people gather like moths to firelight. Eyes widen when they see what you've got. A goat. It might as well be a dragon. The food is portioned. Everyone gets something. Even the old woman with the rattle in her chest. Even the smallest child who can't stop drooling. Even you. Tonight, there is warmth. Not just from the fire, but from the mood. You sit by the flames, belly fuller than it's been in days, hands sticky with goat grease, and you think, we're not thriving, exactly, but we're still here. And in winter, that's a win. The wind howls again tonight. Not a poetic kind of howl, either. It sounds like something's being murdered just beyond the tree line. You duck lower into your furs, adjusting the heap of skins that serve as your blanket, mattress, and winter armor. You've gotten used to the way everything smells like smoke and sweat and old meat. Comfort is relative now. Your belly's not full, but it's not empty either. That goat from yesterday bought you some time. Enough for your ribs to stop feeling like knives poking outward. Enough for the others to relax just a bit, tell a few lazy jokes, even hum a few notes of whatever passes for a lullaby here. But this moment is brief. The snow is deeper today. The river, your sneaky, reluctant friend, is fully frozen. No more fish. No more water unless you boil snow. The world around you has tightened like a belt. So you look at the only option left, bugs. Now, you may be thinking, bugs? In winter? Well, yeah. Not flying ones. Not anything that buzzes. But Neanderthals were nothing if not resourceful, and persistent hunting wasn't the only game in town. When meat fled and plants vanished under snow, you turned to the less obvious, more crunchy solutions. Insects. Larvae. Beetles burrowed in rotting bark. And your personal favorite tonight? Lice. Specifically, body lice. Yeah, we're going there. You've been scratching a bit more lately. So has everyone else. Turns out, if your whole society dresses in unwashed hides and sleeps in communal huddles, lice thrive. And while they're a nuisance, they're also protein. A few folks jokingly refer to them as travel snacks. You pick one off your shoulder, flick it onto a stone warmed by the fire. It sizzles. Smells faintly nutty. Someone chuckles. Historians still argue whether lice were ever a formal part of the Neanderthal diet or just a side effect of how they lived. But we do know that modern indigenous communities in Arctic and subarctic climates have resorted to lice and similar parasites during extreme starvation events. You eat yours with a shrug. Tastes like burnt pepper. Sort of. But bugs aren't just freeloaders on your scalp. They're hiding in the bark of trees. Under rocks. In the rot of old logs. Your group breaks into a few teams and begins the slow, painstaking crawl of winter foraging. You kneel beside a fallen log, flicking snow away to reveal damp wood and, there. Movement. Pale, sluggish little wrigglers. Grubs. Fat, cold, and probably horrified. Perfect. You pluck them one by one. They don't fight. They're too cold to squirm. You drop them into a leather pouch already lined with a few crushed pine needles, for flavor, or at least the illusion of it. Another person finds a nest of beetles. Their hard shells clack like tiny bones as they're scooped up. You gather maybe a handful each. It's not a banquet. But it's a supplement. Back at the fire, the bugs are spread on a heated stone and slowly roasted. The smell is unique. Not bad, just different. Earthy. Slightly sour. A little buttery. Someone bites into a beetle and winces. Still tastes like old socks. You raise your grub like a toast. Better than no socks. Your laugh gets a few tired chuckles. You chew slowly. The grub pops in your mouth, leaking a paste that's sort of nutty, sort of horrifying. But again, protein. And honestly, your body craves it. That's something you've noticed lately. Your instincts are getting sharper. More in tune with what your body needs. It's not just about taste anymore, it's survival chemistry. You know when you're low on salt. You crave fat when your energy dips. You can practically sniff out something with iron when you feel weak. That's not poetic, either. That's science. There's growing evidence that Neanderthals were deeply attuned to their physiological needs. Their diets adjusted seasonally, based on what their bodies told them. Not through language or planning, but through gut-level signals we modern folks mostly ignore in favor of menu options. You pop another grub. The crunch is satisfying now. Someone suggests making insect soup. It's less of a joke than it sounds. You dump the roasted leftovers into a skin pouch with melted snow, heat it with fire stones, and sip the resulting broth. It's earthy. Strange. But warm. Warm is good. That night, the group is a little more energized. Joints move easier. The kids are a bit more talkative. Someone starts reshaping spear tips with stone flakes. You help twist sinew into cord. This isn't thriving, exactly, but it's adapting. And adaptation is what you do. Even the fringe stuff. Like fire ants. Yes, those. You've heard tales, half myth, half dare, of Neanderthals in warmer zones using spicy, aggressive ants as a bizarre food source and even pain medicine. Apparently, the sting gives a weird jolt that numbs everything afterward. Nobody here has tried it. But you have licked a rock just to taste salt, so who's judging? You huddle down again as the wind returns. You scratch an itch. Look at the little pest wriggling between your fingers. Consider. Shrug. Into the fire it goes. You close your eyes, belly slightly warm, and dream not of steak or feasts, but of trees that never die, and logs full of quiet, edible hope. You wake to a weird silence. Not peaceful. Not the hush before a snowstorm kind. This is the kind of silence where every instinct in your gut says something's wrong. The air is wrong. The smoke trail from your fire isn't rising straight anymore, it's being pulled sideways, whipped by gusts you can't hear but can feel in your bones. And it smells off. Not like burning wood or hide. Like earth. Wet, angry earth. Then the ground moves. Not a lot, just a hiccup. A short, sharp jolt that makes a stack of tools clatter and a toddler burst into tears. Everyone freezes. I start around. No one says anything. Neanderthals didn't exactly keep a glossary for mild tectonic activity, but your brain recognizes the threat in its own language. Danger, danger, danger. The ground settles. Still. And then it happens again. Longer this time. You stagger to stay upright. A low rumble groans from below like some slumbering beast shifting in its sleep. When it's over, you glance toward the cliffs above camp. You blink. One of them is shorter now. Avalanche. It's far enough not to bury you, but close enough to matter. Your food stash? Gone. Buried. Crushed. The high shelf you'd packed with dried marrow and slivers of bark fat and that one half-frozen lizard you were definitely saving. All swept down in a tide of snow and rock. You run with the others toward the edge. The ground is torn up like something scraped it clean with giant claws. Trees tipped like toys. A few mammoth bones stick out of the rubble, grim little flags marking the grave of your survival insurance. Your shoulders sag. This is the worst-case scenario, when the few things you did manage to store vanish in seconds. Not stolen. Not eaten. Just erased. You turn back toward camp, hollow. So what now? Well, when nature decides to steamroll your pantry, you dig deeper into desperation mode. And that means the marrow. But not just the fresh kind. You're hunting for old bones now. You recall a spot near the edge of a frozen swamp where mammoth remains were half buried last season. No one's touched them in weeks. The flesh is long gone, but the bones, especially the large ones, might still hold something inside. A last smear of marrow. Greasy, sticky, ancient. A team sets out. You go with them. Because honestly, you're one step from licking tree sap for dinner. The walk is long. The snow is knee-deep and spiteful. But the bones are where you remember. Massive femurs. Hollow rib arches. They protrude like the ruins of a forgotten temple. You kneel beside one, brush away ice, and tap it with your flint hammer. A hollow sound, good. You wedge a wedge, yes, that's how desperate your grammar is now, into the seam and crack it wide. Inside, sludge. Not red, not yellow. Grayish. Sour smelling. Your stomach flips. But someone behind you mutters, still counts. You sip a bit. It's cold. Greasy. A little rancid. But it is fat. And your body doesn't argue with fat right now. It takes what it's given and says thank you, sir, may I have another? This kind of behavior isn't just legend, it's backed by archaeological digs showing Neanderthal bones bearing deep impact marks from marrow extraction. Even bones that had clearly been exposed to weather or scavengers still got split open. That's not an accident. That's urgency. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals planned bone harvesting from old kills or just scavenged when desperation hit. But the evidence leans toward intention. These weren't lucky finds. These were mapped-out sites. You and your group crack open 3 more long bones. There's not much left. One of them smells like death's gym sock. But beggars? Can't even spell choosers. You cook what you can over a weak fire. The heat at least kills whatever bugs were dreaming inside the marrow. You mix the fat with snow, forming something halfway between soup and punishment. But it slips down your throat and coats your insides like a greasy hug. Someone makes a joke about mammoth milkshakes. No one laughs, but not because it isn't funny. It's just too close to reality. You carry the rest back to camp in hollowed skulls, again, not poetic. The skulls hold heat surprisingly well. When you return, the elders nod approvingly. They've seen this before. The hungry years. The days when survival meant letting go of comfort entirely. Letting go of preferences. Letting go of normal. You sip from a skull. You chew some bark. You try not to think about the goat you had just 3 days ago. Then someone suggests an idea. Crazy? Maybe. But not new. What about bones from your own dead? You freeze. No one says it outright. But the silence says it all. The recent burial? That cousin who died 2 moons ago? His bones, still fresh enough, maybe. It's not cannibalism, exactly. You're not eating flesh. Just borrowing what his marrow left behind. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals practiced ritual cannibalism, survival cannibalism, or just efficient recycling. Sites in Spain and France have yielded bones with cut marks and signs of deliberate breakage. Some even suggest defleshing was part of burial, not consumption. But in the middle of a winter like this, the line gets blurry. Ultimately, your group doesn't go there. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. But the thought now lives in the shadows of your mind. You lie down again, hands still tacky with ancient grease, and wonder, how much further down can you go? And if you do you come back? For now, you sleep. Wrapped in the stench of mammoth marrow, dreaming of bones that whisper and trees that watch. Tomorrow, maybe you'll try eating pine cones. You wake up feeling older than you are. Your joints creak. Your shoulders ache. Your knees remind you of every rock you've ever knelt on, and your lower back makes a compelling argument for dying in your 20s. Honestly, you're not even 30 winters old, but in Neanderthal time, that's practically middle-aged. You sit up slowly, brushing ash from your chest furs, and glance around the camp. It's quieter today. Not solemn, just slow. Energy is in short supply. So is food. Again. You've had a few narrow wins the past week: bugs, ancient marrow, a half-rotten mushroom that turned out to be only slightly poisonous, but none of it lasts. Your metabolism is the equivalent of a forest fire, it eats everything and then demands more. That's the Neanderthal design. Wide chests. Thick limbs. Big brains that suck up energy like toddlers with honeycombs. In fact, mainstream researchers estimate you need 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day just to function, and even more if you're hunting, hauling, or running for your life from something with tusks. And today? Today you're living on pine bark and hope. So you do what every desperate Neanderthal does when the earth has stopped giving: you look up. To the trees. Now, you've always known the forest is alive. Not in a whimsical Disney forest kind of way. No. In the deeply uncaring, quietly lethal, I will watch you starve and grow mushrooms on your corpse kind of way. But even cruelty has its cracks. And in the tight clutch of winter, some trees still offer something edible. Barely. So here comes your latest strategy: inner bark. No, not the crunchy outer crust. That's just dirt wearing a disguise. You want the layer underneath, called phloem, soft, slightly sweet, and rich in complex carbs. You take your stone scraper and start slicing. Thin, slow ribbons of bark peel off, curling like sad confetti. You chew a piece raw. It's chewy. Bitter. But with just a ghost of sweetness, like someone whispered the word syrup into a log. You gather more. Pine and birch are your best bets. Fir, not so much, tastes like licking a fireplace. You shred what you can and boil it with snow into a kind of bark porridge. The group calls it tree stew. You call it plan Z. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals ate bark regularly or only in extreme starvation events, but residues found in dental plaque suggest it did happen. Not all the time. Not enthusiastically. But enough to leave a record. Tonight, it's the main course. You pass the bark stew around in a shared gut pouch bowl. 1 sip, 2 sips. Grimaces. But no one spits it out. Someone adds crumbled charcoal to the mix, and you almost gag, until you remember, that's on purpose. Charcoal binds toxins. Makes sketchy food slightly less likely to kill you. It's a survival hack that many indigenous cultures still use today, and there's fringe evidence Neanderthals might have figured it out, too. A clever one might have said, "This stick made my stomach feel better." And that's how medicine is born. Speaking of fringe hacks, someone in your group, let's call him Greg, has a theory about eating stones. Not big ones. Just small, smooth pebbles. For the minerals, he says. You're not convinced. But you've seen him do it. He rolls them around in his mouth like hard candy, then swallows one every few days. He swears it helps with hunger. You suspect it helps with boredom. Still, desperate times. You roll a pebble between your fingers. It's cold and round and utterly unappetizing. You lick it. Tastes like dirt. Go figure. You tuck it into your pouch. Just in case. Then comes another wildcard idea: tree sap. It's not exactly maple syrup, but if you score the right trunk, you can get a sticky trickle of sugar-rich resin. Some of it's edible. Some of it's hallucinatory. Depends on the tree. You chew a glob of amber-colored sap from a birch. It's sweet. Sharp. Resinous. You feel a strange calm spread across your tongue, like nature whispering, "It's okay, it's probably not poisonous." You suck on sap until your jaw aches. It doesn't fill your belly, but it calms the growling. A little. By moonrise, your body is still aching for calories, but your brain is sharper. The sugar helps. You finish crafting a stone scraper you started 2 days ago, fingers working faster now that they're not shaking. This is what food has become. Not satisfaction. Not pleasure. Function. But in these quiet moments, there's something else, too: pride. Pride that you're still here. That you haven't curled up in the snow and let the cold win. That you've eaten everything the forest has to offer, and then invented more options just to spite death. You stretch, your bones crackling, and glance at Greg. He's licking a rock like it owes him money. You smile. You're not full. But you're not gone. And that, tonight, is enough. Tomorrow, you'll try boiling moss. The smell hits you before the wind even shifts. Rot. Thick and wet and ancient. It clings to the inside of your nose like a ghost with boundary issues. You stop walking. Ahead of you, half sunken into the melting edge of a frozen stream, is a carcass. Something big. Woolly. Horned. Maybe an aurochs, maybe a bison, maybe both. Honestly, the skull's too crushed to ID anymore. Doesn't matter. All you see is meat. Kind of. Because it's not fresh. Not even close. The ribcage is hollow. The eyes are gone, sockets filled with slush and shadow. One leg is still attached, barely, dangling at a weird angle like nature forgot to finish its taxidermy. And crawling around the flesh that's left? Maggots. A lot of them. This is what your dinner looks like tonight. You gag a little, then immediately feel bad about it. Because this could be your only chance for real meat this week. And there's a certain kind of quiet shame in being disgusted by what might save your life. You kneel closer. Some of the meat still smells tolerable. Not good. Not alive. But not completely spoiled, either. You prod it with a stick. A flap of skin lifts like soggy cloth. Beneath it? A grey-pink smear of muscle. Slick. Cold. Probably crawling with bacteria that hasn't even been named yet. You glance back at the others. They're watching you, waiting. No one wants to be the first to say, let's eat it. But no one's stopping you, either. Because everyone remembers last winter when someone found a dead reindeer caught in a pit trap and you didn't scavenge it, and 3 people died 2 days later from hunger. So you do it. You slice off a hunk. Not too deep. Not the blackened stuff. Just the middle layer. You trim away the worst and hope the fire will take care of the rest. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals routinely scavenged from long-dead kills or preferred fresh meat only. But tooth marks on ancient bones show that other predators often beat them to the prize. Which means if you're eating this, you're either lucky or very, very late. You drag the meat back to camp wrapped in birch bark. The others help you build a fire fast. You can't risk waiting. The longer it sits, the faster it turns. And you're not trying to have explosive regret as a side dish. You boil it first. The pot is an old stomach bladder. It leaks slightly, but it'll do. You drop the meat in and stir it with a carved antler tine. After a while, the water darkens and the smell changes, less like death, more like wet dog. A win. You fish out the meat and roast it next. Double cooked. If fire were a person, it would win a Nobel Prize in keeping Neanderthals alive. The meat chars sizzles. You watch fat bubble and drip onto the stones. Your mouth waters. Not from hunger, just from hope. The first bite is chewy. Tough as rawhide. But not rotten. Not bad. You swallow. And everyone exhales at once. You just passed the death test. The meat is shared, sparingly. Strips cut small, spread wide. Even the kids get a taste. Someone tells a joke about how the maggots probably had families too. No one laughs, but a few people smile. You sit back, stomach warming, heart slowing. You're not full, but you're closer than you've been in days. Later, someone asks the question you've been dodging. What if the animal died from disease? You pause. Shrug. Then say the quiet truth out loud, so will we, if we don't eat. That's the calculation. Risk versus starvation. Infection versus slow wasting. Because here's the brutal secret, you've probably already eaten diseased meat before. Everyone has. It's just that your immune system is built like a war horse. Or at least, it was. Now it's limping along, and you're gambling every time you chew. But fire helps. Salt helps, if you can find it. Even snow helps, in a way, slowing decay. And the maggots? Turns out, they're not always the villains. Fringe research suggests Neanderthals might have noticed that meat with maggots sometimes healed faster when applied to wounds. Primitive maggot therapy. Unintentional medicine. Who knows? You stare into the fire. Your hands smell like fat and ash. Your mouth tastes like earth. But for the first time in a while, your belly isn't caving in. You lie back on a rolled fur, full of things you shouldn't have eaten, and let your thoughts go blank. The stars blink overhead. Somewhere far off, a wolf howls. But you're still here. Still chewing. Still choosing to live, even when the food is grey, and the line between brave and stupid has completely blurred. You don't remember who said it first, but now it's a joke in your group, when all else fails, dig. Dig what, exactly? Roots. Tubers. Bulbs. Basically, anything the ground is hiding like a paranoid squirrel. Because when the world above is dry, frozen, or already gnawed to dust, the good stuff is sometimes buried just beneath your toes. So today, you're armed with a digging stick, nothing fancy, just a strong, fire-hardened branch, and you're stabbing it into patches of soft soil near the riverbank. It's slow work. Messy. You feel like a raccoon with arthritis. But after an hour, your efforts pay off. You hit something. Not a rock. Not bone. Squishier. You dig around it with your fingers and tug out a brown, lumpy mass. A root. Fat and finger-sized, with tendrils like old man hair. You sniff it. Earthy. A little sweet. You grin. Jackpot. You know this one, your group calls it toothroot. Modern humans might know it as wild parsnip or water dropwort, depending on the species. Here's the kicker, some are edible. Some are lethal. They look exactly the same. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals could consistently tell the difference, or whether some of them simply became very good at dyeing fur so others could learn. The early toxicologists, if you will. You scrape off some of the skin with a flake of flint. Then you roast the root over a small fire. This helps break down the toxins. You hope. The smell that rises is nutty. Comforting. Almost like chestnuts. The kind of scent that tricks your stomach into remembering warm meals. The first bite is fibrous, but not bitter. You chew slowly. You wait. You don't die. So you dig more. You get 3 other types of roots today. One tastes like dirt-drenched carrots. Another makes your tongue tingle like you licked a wasp. You decide not to finish that one. Still, you're gathering enough to make a stew. It won't taste like much, but it'll be warm and full of rough starches that keep your belly busy and your limbs moving. Back at camp, you pound some of the roots flat with a stone. You mix them with a little snowmelt, a pinch of crushed charcoal, and a few stray pine needles for flavor. Okay, not flavor, more like texture. Either way, the result is a gluey paste. You call it tuber mash. Everyone else calls it don't ask what's in it. But they eat it. And for a moment, you see eyes close in pleasure, not because it's good, but because it's better than nothing. Here's a weird historical tidbit. Some Neanderthal teeth show wear patterns consistent with grinding. Not chewing. Grinding. Which suggests they ate a lot of tough, gritty plant matter, maybe pounded roots, maybe hard seeds, maybe both. And get this, tiny starch granules have been found fossilized in their dental calculus, meaning you're literally walking in their chewing tracks right now. Your teeth ache in sympathy. Someone in your group tries roasting a root with its skin on. The outside chars. The inside becomes soft, almost sweet. He passes a piece to a child, who sucks on it like a treat. This is your version of candy. Another member, an older woman with hair like thornbush, teaches you how to twist root fibers into string. You watch her fingers move fast, nimble despite the cold, spinning food into utility. Nothing goes to waste. Ever. You think about how different your world is from what will come later, where food gets thrown away if it's bruised, where people complain about eating the same thing 2 nights in a row. Here, repetition is survival. You eat tubers for days. When your stomach starts to feel strange, bloated, sharp, you take a break. The body has limits. Roots are rough. You need fat to digest them properly. And fat is scarce. You daydream about marrow again. Still, you keep digging. Because even if it's not ideal, it's predictable. And in this world, predictability is rare. Roots don't flee. They don't bite. They don't sprint into the woods when you're hungry. They're stubborn and slow and always where you left them. Just like you. One night, someone in your group starts telling a story around the fire. It's about the time they mistook a poison bulb for food and went blind for half a day. They describe the world in blurs and halos. How they thought they were dying. How they saw a mammoth floating in the sky. Then how they vomited for hours and somehow lived. Everyone laughs. Then, in a quiet moment, someone mutters, "But it was so good at first." You all go silent. Because that's the line you walk every day now. The line between delicious and dead. The trick is learning to tiptoe. And tonight, at least, you're still standing on the right side. The snow has stopped falling, but everything is still soaked and half frozen. You wake with your back sore from sleeping on tree roots, and your stomach groaning like a cave bear in spring. No meat. No tubers. Not even a scrap of marrow left in last night's bones. Which means it's time to try something you've been avoiding, bark. Yep. Tree bark. This is your life now. You pick your way through the forest, looking for a birch tree. You pass pine, spruce, and a few shriveled alders, but birch is the prize today, not for its looks, but for its taste. Or rather, its least awful taste. Birch bark has a thin, inner layer called the cambium. It's soft, slightly sweet, and, miracle of miracles, edible. Not satisfying. Not hearty. But edible. If your standards have dropped low enough, and they have, it counts as a win. You find a good-sized tree and scrape away the outer papery bark with a sharp flake. Then you peel down, deeper, until your fingers find that pale, flexible layer underneath. The cambium comes off in long, ribbon-like strips, like the trees unspooling a scroll just for you. You chew one. It's like damp cardboard dipped in cough syrup. But you keep chewing. Because this is what you do when food is a memory and hunger is your most loyal companion. The others help gather. Some gnaw straight from the tree. Others try roasting the bark curls over the fire to dry them out. Turns out, this helps, sort of. The texture becomes crispy, almost like prehistoric potato chips. Someone even cracks a joke: if we stack them in a pile, we can call it a barkery. You groan, mostly because it's bad, but also because laughing hurts your ribs when you're this empty. Historians know Neanderthals had diverse diets, but bark often gets left off the list. It shouldn't. Studies of modern foragers in harsh environments show bark has real survival value, mostly as a filler, something to keep the stomach from turning inside out while your body waits for better calories. So you chew. And you chew. Hours pass. Your jaw aches. Your belly doesn't feel full, but it feels distracted. That's the best you can ask for right now. Then someone remembers the pine. You hustle over to a stand of tall, straight pines, slender trees with sticky sap and long needles. You gather a handful of those green, spiny tufts and mash them between two stones. What you get is a paste that smells like cleaning fluid and tastes like the back of your throat during flu season. But it's packed with vitamin C. And guess what? That means you won't die of scurvy, today, at least. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals actively sought out specific plants for nutrition or just stumbled into good choices by accident. But it's hard to imagine not learning the benefits of certain trees after generations of chewing them out of desperation. Some trees even double as medicine. Willow bark contains salicin, kind of like a natural aspirin. You don't exactly measure doses here. You just gnaw a strip and hope your headache disappears before you do. Meanwhile, back at camp, someone's trying to make bark soup. It's exactly what it sounds like. Boil water. Add shredded bark. Stir until it becomes something between porridge and mulch. It tastes like compost. But you swallow it. Everyone does. Because you've learned to separate food into two categories, food I like and food I can eat. The second category is far more important. As night falls, the wind starts howling through the trees, rattling the branches like bones. You huddle by the fire, wrapped in furs, belly churning with things your ancestors in a few 100,000 years will call inedible. Someone finds a pine cone with seeds still inside. They pass them around like gold coins. You each get 3. You chew them slowly, reverently, the way a rich person might eat caviar. You almost cry when the taste hits your tongue, oily, nutty, real. You'd forgotten what actual food feels like. Later, in the darkness, you watch sparks rise from the fire and wonder what your body is made of now. Bark, mostly. Pine. Dust. Memories of meat. And still you live. The sky this morning is the color of old bone, pale and still. There's no wind. No birds. No fresh tracks. Just a forest holding its breath. Which means it's time for the last-ditch food strategy. The one that nobody talks about until they have to. Scavenging. You trudge out early with one other member of your group, the quiet guy who smells like burnt hair and always carries 2 knives. You don't talk much. There's no point. Because you both know what you're looking for, something that's already dead, but not too dead. The search is slow. You circle frozen clearings, poke around under trees. You sniff the air like a wolf, hoping to catch the faint sour trace of decay. A couple of times, you find bones, old, picked clean, too brittle to crack for marrow. Once, you spot feathers. Just feathers. No bird. Then, just before midday, you catch a whiff. Something foul. Ripe. Freshish. You follow the scent through a patch of brittle reeds and there it is, a reindeer. Adult male. Dead. And lucky for you, not killed by you or by any other Neanderthal. No, this one likely broke a leg in the snow and collapsed. The body's intact. A bit bloated. Starting to freeze. Perfect. Well, perfect in the same way a soggy birthday cake is perfect when it's the only thing on the table. You check for signs of predators. No claw marks. No shredded gut pile. It looks untouched. You move fast. In weather like this, every second counts. You cut into the belly first. It steams, which means the core is still warm. That's a good sign. The meat's red, a little gray at the edges. You cut wide chunks from the haunches, avoiding anything that smells too sweet or too green. The liver is swollen. You leave it. Too risky. You're brave, not stupid. Back at camp, the group gathers without a word. This is not a celebration. This is necessity, pure and unglamorous. You roast the meat slowly, turning it so the outside chars but the inside heats all the way through. Neanderthals didn't understand bacteria, but they definitely knew what happened when food wasn't cooked enough. Call it instinct. Call it trial and very painful error. The first bite is greasy, tough, and absolutely glorious. You don't talk as you eat. There's only the sound of teeth tearing, fire crackling, and the occasional low sigh of someone finally feeling full. Just enough fat in the meat to make your brain hum. Just enough protein to keep your bones from thinning. Here's the quirky part: Neanderthals likely scavenged more often than we used to believe. Old theories painted them as failed hunters, stuck with scraps. But newer evidence suggests they knew how to pick their moments. Why risk chasing a mammoth when something already dead could feed you for a week? You, right now, are the living proof of that logic. And scavenging comes with perks. No need to burn calories tracking and chasing. No injuries from a panicked animal kicking your ribs in. Just you, your knife, and a little luck. But there are risks too. Later that night, you feel your stomach lurch. Not bad, not dire. Just uncertain. Like your guts are having a meeting and no one can agree. You lie flat, hands over your belly, and whisper to yourself, "It was fresh enough. It was fresh enough." You think about ancient hyenas. Not the modern kind, but the big ones, prehistoric monsters that would have fought you for that carcass if they'd gotten there first. You wonder if they're watching you now, from the tree line. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals scavenged out of desperation or cleverness. Tonight, as you slowly fall asleep to the gurgle of your own insides, you vote for cleverness. Even if your guts disagree. You wake before dawn, wrapped in fur and fog. Last night's scavenged meal has settled, more or less. You're not dead. Your belly isn't happy, but it's quiet, and that's good enough for now. Because today, you're hungry again. Of course. Your group has stopped talking about food in romantic terms. No one dreams of feasts. Now it's all numbers. Calories. Distance. Risk. Return. So this morning, you're trying a strategy that falls somewhere between genius and desperation: insects. Yes. Bugs. You grimace just thinking about it, but this is Neanderthal reality. And honestly, it's not as bad as it sounds. Sort of. You start with tree bark. Not to eat, been there, but to lift and peel away. That's where you find them, fat, white, squirmy grubs, nestled into the wood like they own the place. They don't. You do now. You pluck one, watch it writhe on your palm. You pop it in your mouth. Crunch. And then, creaminess. You gag a little. Not from the taste, it's nutty, almost buttery, but from the texture. Soft and slick, like old porridge wrapped in a balloon. You swallow hard. Then you reach for another. Because once you get past the squick factor, these little guys are nutritional gold. High in fat. Packed with protein. And, bonus, they don't fight back. You spend an hour hunting grubs. Bark after bark. Some trees are gold mines, others empty. You're learning which bark hides which bugs. Pine? Dry. Birch? Sometimes. Rotting logs? Jackpot. Modern scientists call this entomophagy. You call it breakfast. Historians know that early humans, Neanderthals included, had a diverse diet. That probably included insects, grubs, ants, termites, even beetles. The evidence is indirect, but there are signs, tool marks on wood that suggest bark peeling, teeth wear patterns hinting at gritty chewing. And then there's the ancient poop. Yes. Poop. In fossilized feces, researchers have found chitin, the tough shell material from insects. Which means someone, somewhere, was munching on bugs long before the word protein bar ever existed. You keep collecting. And eggs from under a flat stone. A cricket the size of your thumb. A beetle that looks aggressive, so you squish it first, then eat it. Someone in your group sees you chewing and joins in. Then another. Soon, you're all quietly harvesting creeper crawlies like connoisseurs of a very crunchy buffet. You even start ranking them. Best flavor? Pine beetle larvae. Worst? That red ant with the attitude. Runner-up? A slug, which isn't technically a bug, but no one's feeling strict about categories anymore. Later, around the fire, someone roasts a handful of grubs on a flat stone. The shells crisp up. The insides stay gooey. The result? Crunch salty chewy. You all agree it's the closest thing you've had to real cooking in days. And here's your weird fact for the night: some modern traditional diets still rely heavily on insects. In parts of Africa, roasted termites are a delicacy. In Southeast Asia, bamboo worms are sold by the bagful. Maybe they're onto something. You start to think, maybe you're onto something, too. Not just surviving. Adapting. You've eaten roots, bark, bone, and bugs, and you're still here. You've seen hunger pull fangs and show its worst face, and you haven't flinched. Much. That's more than survival. That's resilience. One of the children waddles over with a beetle in each hand. He offers them to you like they're cakes. You accept with a solemn nod and crunch them both in exaggerated bites. He laughs. You're training the next generation. One insect at a time. You don't know it yet, but this ability to adapt, to eat whatever's available, will be one of your kind's greatest strengths. Even if one day the world forgets your name, it will echo in the DNA of those who come after. For now, though, you're just trying to stay warm. You lie back under the stars, belly full of bugs, and close your eyes. You've eaten worse. You'll eat better. But tonight, you're full enough. The clouds part just enough to let a sliver of moonlight touch the forest floor. You stare up at it from your sleeping spot, face half buried in furs, heart slow, limbs heavy. It's been weeks now, maybe more, since you last had what might be called a normal meal. And tonight, as your stomach grumbles in quiet protest against another bug and bark buffet, you feel it more than usual, the ache of fatigue, not just in your body, but in your bones. But you're not done yet. Because tonight, you're turning to the one food source that's always out there, always present, always a gamble. Moss. Lichens. And whatever else grows in the dirt. You wake early, tongue dry, the inside of your mouth sticky like old glue. You need water, but more than that, you need something, anything, to chew. Just to quiet the gnawing. You crouch by a moss-covered boulder and pull a clump loose. It's damp, spongy, with little specks of soil and beetle husks clinging to it. You bring it to your nose. Earthy. Faintly sour. You bite. It's like chewing on a wet rag. But you don't stop. Because some mosses are edible, and you've seen the elders eat this kind before. It won't poison you. It won't nourish you, either, but it might fill the space where hunger lives, and that's something. One of your companions is scraping lichen off a tree trunk, the brittle, papery stuff that looks like flakes of ancient paint. She's careful, some lichens are toxic, especially the yellow-orange kind. But this one's pale green, soft, almost velvety. She tosses a bit into her mouth and chews thoughtfully. Tastes like old socks, she mutters. You nod. Old socks would be an upgrade. Neanderthals weren't farmers. But they were foragers in the truest sense, sampling everything the land offered, testing, learning, remembering. Scholars still debate how extensive their plant knowledge was, especially in tough environments where vegetation was sparse. But evidence suggests they ate more greenery than once believed. You find a patch of sorrel, sharp little leaves shaped like hearts. You recognize these. Sour, yes, but edible. You crush a few in your hand, lick the juice. It stings your tongue, but in a good way. Like your body recognizes it. You share some with the others. Small grunts of approval follow. It's not a feast, but it's something alive, something growing, something fresh, even if only barely. A strange calm comes over you as you nibble on roots too stringy to chew and leaves too bitter to love. The forest is quiet, but not hostile. It's just indifferent. And you've stopped expecting kindness from it. You dig a small tuber from beneath a patch of grass. It's shriveled, wrinkled, no bigger than your thumb. You bite down. Surprise, it's sweet. Faintly. Like something halfway to food. You dig more. Others join in, like animals pawing at the earth. A quiet frenzy. By the end of the day, you've eaten moss, lichen, roots, 2 beetles, and something that might have been a mushroom but thankfully wasn't deadly. Your stomach is confused, but quiet. And that quiet is enough. Later, someone begins to hum. A soft, low tune, barely music, more like a memory turned into sound. You don't know the words. There probably aren't any. But you hum too. A tiny girl walks over and offers you half a worm. You smile, take it, and pretend to nibble. She beams like she's fed you a feast. That's the thing about these bad days. They wear you down, rub off your edges. But they also teach you things you'd never learn on a full stomach. Like how moss can be a meal. How laughter can echo louder when it's rare. How survival is made of thousands of tiny, terrible, brilliant choices. And here's the final quirky detail for you. In icy climates, certain indigenous people still chew on moss and lichen during lean winters, not for taste, not for calories, but to keep the stomach occupied. To keep hope alive, one soggy bite at a time. So you lie down that night, head on a rolled-up pelt, bones heavy, body spent. You made it through another day. Barely. Beautifully. And now, let's rest. Your body, toughened by days of struggle and nights of uncertainty, finally gives way to the warmth of the fire. The sky above is silent, scattered with stars, each one a glint in the ancient eye of the universe, watching, waiting, saying nothing. You feel the slow rhythm of your breath, the slight shift of your chest beneath worn furs. The cold presses close, but it doesn't break you. Not anymore. Not tonight. Insects, bark, moss, grubs, you've tried it all. And somehow, here at the edge of everything, it's enough. Not good, not easy, but enough. Let your thoughts drift now, to flickers of flame, to the crunch of pine needles underfoot, to the distant howl of a wolf far too tired to come closer. Let your imagination soften, stretching out over hills and rivers you might never see, over time itself, over the long arc of human survival that begins, somehow, with you. You were never meant to thrive here. But still, you did. You survived the lean days, the bitter snow, the empty belly and the strange meals. You listened to your hunger, and you answered it in ways both clever and brave. So rest now, brave forager. Let the fire crackle low. Let the forest grow quiet around you. Let the stars blur gently in the sky. You've done enough. You are enough. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow will come when it comes. Sleep well, little Neanderthal. Sleep deep. Sleep full.